and welcome back to the Bill Brief, the podcast where we break down legislation, what it says, why it matters, and how it could shape our communities. I'm your host, DJ William, and today we're taking a closer look at S23971, the Small Business Innovation and Economic Security Act. So, unlike some of the other bills we've discussed, this one has actually been passed into law. It was signed into law on April 13th of this year, which I think is so cool, so phenomenal. And this was signed as a public law, 11983, and it was sponsored by Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. So, what is this law, right? Before we get into all the provisions and the implications and everything relating to that, this law focuses on helping small businesses. And what does it help small businesses do exactly, right? It helps them develop these new technologies while also taking into prioritization national security. So it reauthorizes two major federal programs, one of which is the SBIR. I always forget these, acronyms, right? So SBIR is the Small Business Innovation Research Program. And then the other one is STTR, and that one is the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So we're going to get into all of what these two programs actually do and why they're so relevant to helping small businesses. But that's basically the crux of the bill, is it's reinstating these two very, very integral programs. So an overview of kind of what these programs do is they basically provide funding to small businesses in order to help them work on both innovative research and development programs. Also, some development projects as well. With the rise of AI, many small businesses are taking that into account, building new innovation, building new projects, and then these programs are the ones that assist with that. And that is so, so important, especially in today's world. Okay, so now that we know kind of what the bill is about, we're going to get into the main provisions of the bill. So, like we talked about, the first provision is that it just extends these two programs, right? The SBIR and then the STTR. I know so many different acronyms, or is it acronyms? I believe it is acronyms. Let's see. Yeah, acronyms. I was like confused between acronyms and abbreviations, but yes, those were acronyms. So, um okay, yes. So that's what it does, right? It extends these two different programs. And like we talked about, these two programs are very important in providing this funding. And many well-known companies, including both like technology startups, the different biotech startups, have actually received funding from these programs, specifically the SBIR program, the research program, when they were first starting out as a small business. So knowing that information is like really important because now you know, okay, these programs have already been implemented before and they've already worked. So why not pass this bill? And it's really funny talking about this because this bill was actually signed into law. So we know that it is an amazing bill. Okay, the next thing, or like the next provision, the major provision, is that it also increases national security screening. So it basically says that federal agencies must now conduct stronger security reviews of businesses that are applying for funding. So while small businesses are great, and of course, they have my respect 100%, it is so hard to run a business, especially when you don't have that much support. But the only thing is that there are many risks, especially risks concerning national security. And we want to make sure that there are no risks and we want to be safe as a country, that the businesses we are providing funding to are allowed to actually be a business, right? So, like some businesses have foreign ties. That could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing. So, making sure that we have those national security screenings are really, really significant. So, what it's saying is that if a company is denied funding because of security concerns, the government actually has to explain the reason for its denial. Okay, so this is super duper important, right? You can't just have a company or small businesses that's denied funding and the government is just able to take that funding away and not give us a reason. So this bill specifically states, okay, if a small business is asking for funding, but the government does not give it to them for a particular reason, they must state that reason. So we can see that this bill is also taking national security concerns into the light into the light, and also, on the other hand, making sure that what is being done is completely and utterly fair. Okay, so the next main provision that we're talking about is that it limits the number of applications. And this is really interesting. And this is also something that we're going to get into when we talk about the counter arguments. But the federal agencies have to establish a maximum number of proposals that a company can submit each year. The goal by doing this is to prevent a smaller number of companies from flooding the system with applications and taking a disproportionate and unfair share of that funding. So by limiting the number of applications, we're allowing small businesses to still get that funding, but also not exploit it. I don't know if that was the best word, but yeah, just not take advantage of the funding that they are receiving. This is really, really important because they are receiving funding, but we want to make sure that it's fair and it's being spread equally across all small businesses and nobody is kind of rigging the system. Okay. Getting into, our last provision or our main impact of this bill is that it creates these strategic breakthrough allocations. So this law actually establishes additional funding opportunities for companies that are working in these more specific technology areas. So like we talked in the beginning, we are currently living in an AI world, right? It is AI is just rising and it's only going to get more prevalent, especially in companies. So this law is making that easier by having additional funding allocated specifically for these technological advancements. So this includes AI, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, something known as quantum computing, which I wish I was smart enough to understand, and also biotechnology. So all of those really, really important technological breakthroughs. Companies that are demonstrating really great technology and also obtaining matching funds may even qualify for some additional awards. So this bill is great because it's all about supporting those small businesses, providing them the funding they need, expanding technology while also maintaining a secure system. So already it's really great, but now let's talk about the actual effects of this bill, right? It encourages innovation. Small businesses are the ones who are responsible for breakthrough ideas. Many small businesses have ideas popping up all over the world. The only thing is that most of the time, these small businesses struggle to find funding. But this law provides continued support for entrepreneurs who are developing those new technologies and maybe don't have all of those connections in order to get that funding. So that's why this is especially amazing. And like we talked about, it also strengthens national security. Lawmakers have increasingly just expressed their concerns over and over about foreign governments who are gaining access to these especially sensitive technologies. But with this bill, we have those additional screening requirements that help ensure fully taxpayer-funded research programs that are providing this funding and making sure that everything is secure with these small businesses. So that's really, really great. And also, it creates economic growth by helping new businesses compete. So basically, we realize that it creates jobs, right? By creating more funding allocated to AI, cybersecurity, quantum technology. We're allowing so many people from different fields to come and work for these small businesses. And since we have increased funding, they also can get paid, which is really amazing. And then this can just like alter the business as a whole by attracting investment, generating tax revenue, developing new products and services, and just helping this business blossom. So it could be amazing by boosting local and technological and national economies as a whole. It also helps businesses compete because it does limit the number of applications that one company can submit. So maybe smaller firms, newer firms, they would have a better chance at receiving funding because one company can't just hog all the applications and get all the funding. That is something that I was really happy was included in this bill because it could have easily been forgotten and not included. But the fact that was included shows how the creators of this bill want to make sure that it works for every potential situation. So it literally thinks of absolutely everything, which is definitely why it got passed into law in the first place. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of the counter arguments and the concern side of things. Okay, now we talked about how great this bill is, but there are critics, of course, there always are. But why are they criticizing this bill? They believe that it's more bureaucracy. So they think that, additional security reviews, like we talked about, could make the application process slower, more complicated, and that some startups could even struggle with that extra paperwork and compliance requests and everything else that comes with more security. This is something that I agree with, but it is necessary. Like, I know the process is going to be slower. I know it's going to be longer. I know it's going to be more difficult, but it is something that is needed to ensure the security of these businesses. And we cannot take the shortcut on this one. So I understand why it's a criticism, but it is really, really important. Okay. Another thing is the proposal limits. And you know how I mentioned in the beginning, or maybe in the middle, how this was going to come up and be a counter argument? Yes. So these proposal limits, because we're having companies only be allowed to submit a certain number of proposals. Certain companies could specialize in research and want to submit multiple proposals, right? But having these proposal caps could punish these businesses that are actually being productive. So while originally these proposal caps were thought of as a good thing and making sure everything is fair, it could also be really bad to those research companies that deserve to submit multiple proposals. Again, this definitely could be a concern, and I understand why it is a concern, but it should not be the reason that we're not passing this incredible bill because there are always workarounds for these types of things. Okay, now the last concern that we're going to get into before getting closer to closing things up for today is increased administrative costs. So this means more reviews. This means more training. This means more oversight, just more of all of the really complex stuff. And then this could also require additional government resources, additional funding. So it brings into question, how are we going to provide more funding to small businesses if we're going to need more government funding for reviews, for trainings, for oversight? So for me, it's like this bill is 100% going to help small businesses. So maybe once we have these trainings, we can see how many are needed. Like, I'm sure it's not going to need a ton of government funding. There'll be specific government funding allocated for which types of trainings, for the oversight programs that are decided to be implemented, as well as the reviews. But all of this coming as part of this bill is really, really great. And it will happen one way or another. And the government funding that is provided for that is planned with the passing of this bill. So it shouldn't really be a criticism. It should just be a question of like, how is this going to work out? But it should not be a reason of why we do not pass this bill. So that is why these criticisms or these critics are like, they are asking important questions, but these questions in and of itself should not be a reason why we don't pass this amazing and incredible bill as a whole, but they should definitely be areas that we look into more with the passing of this legislation, which is why I'm sure this bill was passed in the first place. Okay, so let's get into the impact on our country as a whole, on the United States. This law could have significant national impacts. This includes stronger technological leadership. This includes more domestic research, better protection of those especially sensitive technologies. And this is something that I want to get into. More of those security reviews could prevent critical technologies from ending up in the hands of foreign adversaries or just things that are unsafe. And that's why the national security that comes along with this bill is really, really important, because we want to make sure that these small businesses are going to be safe and the ones that are asking for funding are really legit. And it's really saddening how this has been tampered with in the past and how things have gone wrong. So the increased oversight that is and comes, or I keep using the word comes, but that is going to be implemented with this legislation is incredibly a necessity and is very, very integral to this whole process of requesting funding as a small business. Okay, so the impact on just a smaller community as a whole. This law could sound very, Washington, D.C. focused, but it could also affect local communities in more meaningful ways. It could give more opportunities for startups, like new small technology companies just in California or even in smaller communities, more internship and career opportunities. We were saying how there's going to be more programs directed to AI, cybersecurity, biotechnology. And there are so many high school students, college students who are planning on majoring in that and going into those fields. So this just opens up a wide variety of opportunities for them. And, it also could increase partnerships with colleges, with universities, especially with the STTR program, which basically it would encourage collaboration between both businesses and also with research institutions that could be increasingly amazing, just honestly amazing, no words, for college students, and also provide economic growth. Essentially, this bill, the Small Business Innovation and Economic Security Act, it just asks a question, right? Our question is, how can America continue encouraging innovation while also protecting national security with these small businesses? And this is exactly what this bill does, right? It takes into account that we need new innovation created. We need more technology, especially with the rise of AI. But we also need to take into account that there is a national security concern and we need to deal with both of these issues. And this bill answers that question, and it is the solution and it is the answer to fixing this big challenge. The law strikes it. It supports small businesses, encourages breakthroughs, adds safeguards. It literally does everything anyone would want to support small businesses. And that is exactly why I believe and why I know it was passed into law on April 13th of this year, 2026. So with that, we're going to end today's episode. Just knowing that we have a bill like this passed, it makes me really, really confident about more bills to come. And I'm really, really excited. But this was great. So thank you all so much. And I will see you next time.